Hey everybody, this is Ben and Axe from Bitrise, and recently you may have seen a lot of chatter about local privilege escalation, security bugs in Linux, and so we just wanted to prepare this video for our customers to learn a little bit about it and what they need to be thinking about whenever they're running their CI on Bitrise. So first, just introduction. My name is Ben Burrell. I'm an engineer on the team that builds the VM images that all of your builds run on. And I'm here with Axe. Axe, tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Axe, and I'm an information security officer here at Bitrise.
So thanks for joining us and lending your expertise, Axe. So let's just start with the very basics. What is local privilege escalation?
Right, so local privilege escalation is basically a type of vulnerabilities where an attacker can escalate his and her privileges from a certain level to an upper level. This, in the security world, usually means that you have like a low privileged access, and then you escalate it to a higher, typically administrator level access on a machine.
And then you can do bad things with that higher.
Yeah, basically whatever you want. Yeah, because with your limited user, you get some restrictions, obviously. And if you escalate your privileges to administrator level, then you can do basically whatever you want in the context of that given machine.
So I've heard about CopyFail, and then I heard about all these like cousins of CopyFail that seem to emerge really quickly after that. How do these specific local privilege escalation CVEs work? Why are we learning about these now? What do they do?
Right. So these are quite complex issues. I don't want to go like too deep in the technical level, but the main question is, I think, why we see these now, and the answer to that is AI. So a lot of people getting their hands on AI-assisted vulnerability research, and this speeds things up. So whatever took a certain amount of time in the past to find these tricky bugs, this process basically speeding up. So people finding these types of bugs much sooner than before. And these three bugs actually are various parts of the Linux kernel. These are like universal bugs, meaning that it affects all versions of Linux kernel, basically. So it's not like the usual exploits where you have a certain software version or a range of software versions which are affected, but rather these affects all versions because these are like logical bugs. I think that's the main purpose of takeaway.
Does Darwin and macOS use the same kernel? Is that affected as well?
No, they are using a different type of kernel, but obviously we can see the future. There is very well a scenario where we see similar issues in the Darwin kernel as well. But as we will talk about it later, we have protection against these type of issues. These don't really affect Bitrise customers.
So let's get into that. Tell us what Bitrise customers should know about their CI.
Right. So I think the simplest approach why Bitrise customers are not affected by LPE or local privilege escalation issues is that Bitrise built instances are kind of a single user operating system, meaning that there's only really a single user within the operating system. This user is actually the developer, and this user has root privileges already. So the build process itself, because it uses or performs things that requires high privileges, it's already running as root. So really there is no point for an attacker to escalate privileges, because if an attacker has the possibility to execute command or code on a build process, it's already running as root. So using these type of vulnerabilities doesn't really give any additional privileges to an attacker.
And that's okay. That the fact that the user already has root privileges is okay because the builds are running inside of a VM, which is sort of sandboxed. what they can do is specific to that VM.
Exactly. Yeah. So at Bitrise, the security boundary is not the privilege which you have on a given operating system, be it Linux or macOS, but rather that it's a virtualized environment, so a contained box. And escalating your privileges within that box doesn't give you access to anything else. So you are still contained within that box. So the real security threshold is basically the hypervisor and not the Linux kernel.
Cool. Well, that's very reassuring. Outside of Bitrise CI, do you have any general recommendations for our customers or just people who use computers?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say two things. So the first one is a little bit connected to this issue. So by default, Bitrise builds are running without remote access. So actually, there is not really a way for an attacker, a direct way to access your build instances, which I think is really good. And then comes the second thing, which actually worth looking into regardless if you are building Android or iOS apps. And those namely are the third-party libraries which you should use. And that should be looked into to avoid any malicious code entering into your build process, because that's actually a real way and that could affect your builds and your application.
And I imagine there are tools that people could look into to audit their dependencies or their specific practices like pinning to, a version rather than just auto updating. These kinds of things that you would recommend to manage that risk?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the tools we love and use also in-house is Gripe. I can wholeheartedly recommend that, absolutely. Then the other thing you mentioned, pinning, is a really good idea. What we recently learned is a good strategy is that let me be complete. So in the old days, the strategy was that you update your packages as soon as a new version arises. But we see, because of these new type of issues compromising third-party packages, that it's a good strategy to have some buffer time. So not upgrading to new versions instantly because it could be compromised, but rather introduce a slight delay in upgrading your packages. And that allows time to the open source community to spot issues with new or basically compromised packages. And that way you can avoid upgrading to a compromised package, basically.
Excellent. I've learned quite a bit in a short amount of time. Thank you very much for sharing that. And if anybody has any questions about how this might affect them on Bitrise, send us an email. Let's connect at bitrise.io. And until next time, see you.
Bye-bye.